Hey, and welcome to or welcome back to the Global Holistic Coaching Podcast. This is The Conversation Continues. Today, we are tackling spring cleaning, something that a lot of people are really motivated to get started with. And then we've been getting a lot of questions about, but how? How do we clear the clutter to create new and get clear this spring? All right, so let's get into it. I think we're two great people to be talking about this because we both really enjoy organizing and clearing and cleaning and helping our clients get organized. And spring, I think, is kind of like the New Year Eve resolution equivalent to cleanliness, right? We kind of associate in our culture this idea that every spring it's time to just kind of get the winter energy out, just kind of get everything that has accrued over the holidays and over the school year out. But we get this question a lot. I feel stuck. Where do I start? I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I'm drowning in my stuff. Help. So what would you say to your clients who come in wanting some guidance and help for how to clear the clutter?
I think what I'd want to do is actually get my clients motivated as to why is it even important. Some people are not as crazy about cleanliness as you are, Gina, or as I am. And actually, when I was younger, I was probably a little bit more relaxed with a mess in a room or something. But I realized over the years, and it's not even I realized, I was taught over the years the importance of keeping order in the house and also how everything's connected. So I think where I begin is to get my clients thinking about how everything is connected. In fact, I remember learning that if you didn't make your bed in the morning, the mess of the bed would actually, the energy would follow you throughout the day. And I was just like, what? And so I'm that type of person, whereas even if something sounds out there or crazy, I have this philosophy to try it because it either works or it doesn't. It either makes a difference or it doesn't. And so when I was much younger, started to make it a priority to make my bed every morning. And, something I did feel a difference because when I came home at night, it felt good to not be hit with a mess. And so as I started to learn about, different philosophies and how everything's connected, I learned that when we have a cluttered room, it actually affects our minds and can create a cluttered feeling as far as like thoughts and clarity and focus. And so I would want to inspire anyone to start to experience for themselves how they feel in a room that is more neat and organized, and also even more minimalistic, if I might add, versus a room that's very busy and cluttered. Most people, if they even hire a cleaning service to come in, most people feel an energy difference when they walk in your home. Or maybe you spend the day cleaning yourself and then you get to kind of feel what it feels like. There's a difference. And so, just understanding that what we do within affects the external, and the external can actually complement the internal. And when people feel overwhelmed and where do I get started, I say start with a drawer, start with a closet, start with something small that can help you to not feel overwhelmed, but also something starts to happen in the material world when we start to give away, when we start to let go, when we start to, throw something out. There's an energy that starts to get moving. And I'm not going to get into it right now, but when you start to let go in the material world, you actually start to notice where you can let go in the emotional world. And there's a rippling effect in different areas of our life.
It's so true. And, from a clinical mental health perspective, I've always found this very fascinating how we can have this emotional connection to an intangible object. And, some of it's kind of obvious where if you lose a loved one and you have an item that you're holding on to that it just feels too much to let go of it because it feels like you're letting go of your grief or you're letting go of this person. And I do understand that. And I do have clients where we've had to work through that grief and kind of get to, okay, well, which are the items that bring positive memories and which are the items that bring sadness, and let go of the items that bring sadness and keep one or two items that bring the happy feeling. Um, I've had clients hold on to items from loved ones who've passed who they didn't have a good relationship with. And so every time they passed the item, they would get angry or upset or anxious. And that's interesting too, right? Because you bring up some really great points about how our mind is very busy and there's so much to be thinking about that we don't always pay attention to what our subconscious is picking up. And our environment is one of the only places, our home is one of the only places that we're actually in control to decide what our subconscious is bringing in while we're in that space. So even really thinking about not just what am I not using, what is out that might be distracting, but also what are the things that I'm holding on to that don't bring me peace or happiness or joy, where I either feel nothing or on the other side, I feel anxiety or I feel stress when I see this item, right? And so there's that. I also love like the clinical mental health overlap with ADHD. And I've worked with clients where I do telehealth, so I can see their home on their screen. And we've done exercises, and in real time, I've been able to see how this happens. Where if you're somebody who has ADHD, then it's going to work for you most likely that all of your piles are out in front of you, and we can get there and we can kind of teach and coach how to create a more organized space within how your mind works. But if you have just disarray of all of the things that need to be done spread out, not organized, then I have seen this happen in real time where you're going to do something, like you're going to pick up a bill that needs to be paid, and on your way to pick up that bill you pass an invitation to a birthday party and you pick up the invitation instead. You go to RSVP to the birthday party and you've already forgotten about the bill that needs to be paid.
Right.
And I've seen this in real time happen with my clients who have ADHD. So we've been able to kind of problem solve there and say, okay, let's have like, and everybody's a little bit different. So we're not suggesting that everybody has to live like us or everybody has to have a home like I always joke about my label maker, that if I could bring one thing to an island, if I was deserted on an island, what would I bring? It'd be my label maker. I joke about that. And then I say, not really my label maker, my Dyson, but not everybody wants to be that. Like some people are genuinely stressed out in an environment that is too neat. So it's trying to find your sweet spot for how to make your home your sacred space. So instead of your home being a source of anxiety or stress or sadness, your home becomes a place of peace, equanimity, and feeling safe and secure. And then you also touched on, and then we can talk a little bit about the Eastern philosophy there with a little bit of feng shui too, because there is that energetic feeling. And what you said about making the bed in the morning and how that works. Well, first of all, you came from military home. So, I always really respect that in military homes. So the beds are made so nice and neat. But for me, it's always been like, if I don't have time in the morning to make my bed, if I'm like rushed, and some mornings are genuinely like that, you can feel it throughout the day, that kind of like unsettled, like you're always like rushing to meet the next deadline. Whereas if you can give yourself permission to have enough time in the morning, and we do a podcast on morning habits and rituals to set you up for success. So something like that going back, but making your bed can be part of that, because you're saying, I think subconsciously, that I've got it together. Like my day is mine and I can handle today, right? It's one of those action steps you can take in the morning to really help set a nice solid foundation for the rest of the day. And I'm at the point where I can't not make my bed, but that's probably a different thing.
No,
Probably
seriously,
something else.
there's a lot of teachers that actually talk about the importance of making the bed in just a simple way that you've accomplished something. Like there's something you succeeded at first thing in the morning,
Right.
and so that was done right away. And the other thing too, I wanted to touch on is something that you mentioned, Gina, about the subconscious and what you're picking up on without even realizing it.
Right.
And this is like very big in hypnosis and in neuro linguistic programming. because our conscious mind picks up so much, so many bits of information, but the subconscious mind, man, it's picking up billions of bits of information like every moment. And so our environment, whether we're conscious of what we're picking up or not, doesn't mean that it's not being noticed. And remember, we have busy minds right now. The mind is addicted to stimulation. We've got the digital devices, the being bombarded with news and social media, and then work and family and all the other things that life brings. So if we can create a sanctuary in our home, and one of the things I will recommend right off the bat is take a look at your entrance. The entrance to your home and in feng shui is very important so that we don't block opportunities, so that we don't block the energy of the flow of what's coming and going. And also, too, when you come home from work or from anywhere, when you open your door, I recommend the first thing you see is something that brings you a smile, something that brings you a calm home. So make sure there's no clutter and make sure there's something that you love, something that's beautiful, or something inviting. And keep that in mind. The entrance is super important. And then just take a look around. And there's a philosophy that if you don't love it, then give it away or sell it. And if you keep it, in yogic philosophy, there's a saying, well, then you are a thief. If you're keeping something that you don't love because you're robbing somebody else from enjoying it or loving it. And keep in mind, less is more. So if you start to take a few items away, just notice how it feels when you walk in. If there's not a lot of things on your shelves, if there's not boxes or things that you didn't get to. And if you're in a spot right now where, whoa, you're allowing, you've allowed too much to accumulate over the years, again, back to what I already said, pick one item, pick one area. And just real quick, this was years ago. I had a client that was actually having a lot of trouble making decisions. And, it was just something intuitive that as I was talking to her, I just started to bring up, the art of feng shui and organization and keeping a clean home, and how that energy can be blocked if there are like boxes that are, unpacked and so forth. And she just smiled at me and she's like, have you been in my house? It's just like, no, but it just actually went with the indecisiveness and the confusion that she was experiencing because there was a lot of actual past and clutter in her home. So, taking a look there and actually having fun with it. And if it does also feel overwhelming, call someone in. If you can afford to pay somebody, great, get a professional. If not, maybe you could have a couple of friends or a family member and make it fun. Turn on some music and make some tea and, and just invite and allow the help. But either way, get it done. It's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I like that. And, going just to add to that, I think that a lot of people get stuck because either I think we all think our items are more valuable than they actually are. So having a friend in the room to be like, nobody's going to buy that. Like nobody wants that.
Yeah,
Like
I like
put that, give that away, give that to charity can be very helpful and actually really funny and a really good time. If you want to have a good time, invite a good friend over and go through your closet, or a sibling. No one will be more honest than a
that.
sister if you have one. So get her over there. Okay. So a couple of other action steps, because I think that everybody says, okay, great. And I teach this a lot and everyone says, yeah, obviously I would like to have a clean home, but what can I do every single day that's going to really help? One of the biggest bangs for your buck, I think, is the 5-minute timer, where you just set a 5-minute timer at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day and just tidy up. Just tidy up for 5 minutes, because two things happen here. Number one, you start to create the pattern and routine of tidying up in the morning and tidying up at night, which is lovely. And on average, about after 90 days, you may not need a timer anymore. Some people will always need a timer, and that's okay. But the other thing is you realize how much you can get done in 5 minutes. I think we make this mistake of always thinking something's going to take a lot longer than it's going to. So you'll think, oh, I can't do the dishes right now. I just don't have the time. But actually, if you just even set a 5-minute timer, you could load the entire dishwasher in like probably 3 minutes. I mean, maybe even four. So time becomes your friend this way because you start to understand that things don't take as long as you think they're going to take, and that you have most of us have about 18 hours of awake time during the day. You can give 10 minutes to tidying up out of that, 18 hours. So that would be number one. The other thing I like to do with clients when we're first starting out this work together is to set a goal of eliminating 20 items a week and trying to do that for the whole year. I mean, and some of you who have been working with me know I give away or get rid of the year that I'm in stuff. So to this year will be 2025 things. And when people hear that, they go, no way. I've been doing this since COVID, by the way. So I started COVID. I have successfully done this every year since COVID. It's my own personal thing, and it feels very good every time I get rid of something. I put it up on the marker board. So if you don't think you can get rid of 20 things in 1 week, believe me, you definitely can. But if that sounds too intimidating, start with 10, or start with 5. But don't forget, everything matters. A piece of paper counts, that counts. A broken pen counts. A paper clip counts, because all of these things over time, they start to add up. And then the third thing I really like to do is offer the 6-month box where, I think at first when you start doing this work, it can be emotional, and it can be one of those things that you might be one of those people who's like, but I'm going to need this, or
Right.
one day I'm going to hike. Well, if you have hiking boots and you've had them for 5 years and they still have the tag on them, you're not going to use them. You're probably not going to use them, right? But that's why I say, okay, fine. Let's compromise. Put them in the 6-month box. So what that means is you would take the hiking boots that still have the tag on them, put them in a box, give yourself 6 months. If in 6 months you still haven't used them, send them to
So
somebody who, yeah, donate, because just like you were saying, and I love that way of looking at it, is like that kind of hoarding mentality, which I think we fight our own biological necessity, because we needed to hoard, we needed to pile, we needed to keep things for safety and for security and for stockpiling food and all of those things from an evolutionary point of view. But now we have everything we need and then some. So we have to fight that biological instinct to keep and remind ourselves that it's okay to let go. So the 6-month box can be something like, throw a sweater in there you're not sure about, a pancake maker that you've wanted to make, but you're not a cook and you haven't made pancakes. It's still in the box. Put that in the 6-month box. And if in 6 months, whatever's still in that box that didn't come out, donate. So those are
okay.
like 3 kind of quick and easy ways to start doing this work.
The only thing I think now I want to add, and this will be, for everyone, but especially moms with little ones. And I learned this, Gina, when you and Brittany were little. And the toys and the clothes and shoes, and there's a like a mantra, a line that you say is, "Don't pass it up, pick it up." Because oftentimes we'll pass something and we'll notice it and we'll be like, oh, like note to self, I need to put that away. Instead of doing that, just pick it up right then and there. So don't pass it up, pick it up. It could be a cup on the table. It
And
could be
wait, hold on. Where did that come from? The Slob Sisters VHS from the 1980s.
this was absolutely they were what were they, 8 tracks then?
I think they were VHSs and like a book, but I think it was called the Slob Sisters, because I remember that being around the house. And of course, even as a child, I was like, ooh, organization.
I can't believe you remember that
Of
because
course I do. The pick it up, don't pass it up. I still use that in my head when I'm like going upstairs. I'm like, pick it up, don't pass it up.
yeah,
But I was born as an organizer, so I loved that literature in the house. I read
so,
it.
yeah, and it does. Obviously, it's stuck in your mind for 40 years. That's incredible, and I still use that too. And then the other thing I just want to add real quick, and this was a good friend that taught me this, and he said, when you leave a room, don't leave a trail. So in
I
other
love
words,
that.
you are like private detective. You
Yes.
were able to go in the room and say, you had a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
you were reading a book,
Okay.
oh, you had your slippers out, So when you leave a room, don't leave a trail so that
Yes.
if somebody goes in after you, they can trace everything that was done. And that was also a real helpful tip. And you see, these little things that you do help keep you in the flow. So there is kind of an order of things. You kind of want to get rid of the clutter and, organize and minimalize and you'll really create this wonderful energy in your space. And then, the way to keep up after that would be don't pass it up, pick it up, and not, not to leave a trace. I love Gina's 6 month rule. These are real helpful hints. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you have enjoyed
And
tips. Yeah.
absolutely. And as we do this work too, you can be intentional with it, just to kind of bring it into our mental health, that as you're clearing your environment, it can be like a flowing meditation. It really can, that cleaning, what is it? Carry water, like chop wood, carry water kind of, right? These day-to-day activities can be used as kind of like a flowing meditation. And
And
of course,
starting is the hardest.
getting started is the hardest, and it's also hard to break habits that you've had a lifetime forming. So give yourself some grace there that, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it's worth
Yeah.
trying to create these new healthy habits. And back to our podcast where we were saying how to have the best day ever, we talked about meditating in the morning, which is cleaning your mind, right? So now taking this a step further and adding 5 minutes in the morning for tidying up is clearing your space. And I don't think we can separate our internal from external world. Our external home is
Right.
a reflection of our internal state and vice versa. So don't underestimate how much your environment is impacting you, whether or not you realize that it's impacting you. And I just want to say, if you are a parent, that going off of your friend who kind of said, make it like a detective, what did you do? With kids, that is how I always approached it with my kids. I would say, we're going to play a game and I'm going to be the detective and I'm going to tell you what you did today based off of the evidence you left around, but I'm going to give you 10 minutes to clean the crime scene. And we're going to see who wins this game. Can I see what you guys did? You guys played Monopoly. Somebody went for a run. Somebody walked the dog. Somebody ate Doritos, all of those kind of things. And the kids loved it. And so that really inspired them to try to clean up their crime scene to see if mom
Getting them to
is what
pitch
they
in,
do. Yeah, getting them to
pitch in.
yeah. So you can make a game. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
you can make a
You
game out of
know, um, Gina, one of the things, I don't know if you know, I did this with Brittany, which is Gina's little sister. When she was little, I inspired her to fold towels because I needed
it.
help with laundry, and I told her that nobody folded towels better. That she had a gift and a knack, and I didn't even want to attempt it because they always came out so good. And she would fold towels and be so proud. Well, this was just, I promise you, like last year. So, Brittany now being a grown woman and everything, she's like, just recently I said to a friend, I was mentioning how great I fold towels. And my friend was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, "Yeah, I just have this like gift." And her friend was just like, what do you mean you just fold towels? And then she said, and for the first time, Mom, I realized that I was thinking that I folded towels better than anyone else because he used to tell me that when I was little.
And she did. She was a really good towel folder. I still tell her, I'm like, come to my house and teach me how to fold my towels. Fold my towels for me.
You could really paint that fence better than I could. Yeah.
I call that Homer Simpsoning, somebody like the Homer
Yeah.
Simpson effect, because he would always, in the show, pretend like he couldn't do something to get Marge and Lisa to do it for him. Yes, great. Great. So we can get very clever in how to bring the kids into this work. But if you have any questions on this topic, shoot us an email. We love questions, or drop your questions or comments below. Tell us, how do you get motivated for spring cleaning? What works for you? If you're one of those really organized people, share your tips with us. If you're somebody who struggles and needs a little help, ask us your questions. We get all of our topics for our podcast, and a lot of our coursework and the literature we create comes from our clients and from you guys. So keep the questions coming.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you next. Conversation continues.